Maulvi and Nelson Mandela launched the defiance campaign.
And the police opened fire on them and killed 69. 69 people were dead in a few minutes.
It was the height of repression. Our leaders were banned and banished. Our organizations were silenced, were closed. In 1960 onwards, people were persecuted, etc. Whatever you did, people were put under 24 hours house arrest. What the hell do you do?
And it was at that point that Nelson Mandela called for the setting up of the armed struggle, Umkhonto we Sizwe, the spear of the nation. I had been arguing for this for a year because I thought it was necessary, that the apartheid government would not submit to negotiations.
After joining Umkhonto we Sizwe, what we did was we blew up mainly government buildings and installations. And one of the things that we were taught was that you make certain that no lives are lost, either side, on our side or on the side of the government.
And what was the message? The message was not to kill the whites. The message was to bring down the enemy to its knees by acts of sabotage, economic and others, because it's a guerrilla force. You can't, the very definition of guerrilla and armed force is it's a weapon of the weak against the strong. When you meet, that the enemy will not know where you are, what it is, so they don't know. For example, if I am a member of Umkhonto we Sizwe, what public building we're going to attack, and it wasn't at random. It was probably an electric pylon we're going to blow down, or a substation or something like that, and the idea was also to get more and more people into the movement.
What was then happening was that they had allocated different areas for different groups of people. Like the Indians were allocated in Johannesburg, they were allocated Lenasia. In Pretoria, they were allocated an area called Erasmia or Lodium, and they all had to move there from wherever they had been staying. Previously, the majority of the Indians in Pretoria had been living in a place called Marabastad, or they called it the Indian location. They were forced to move from there and to Lodium. Nana Sita had been allocated a house there, which had been built by the government, a very modest place. And he was asked to move there and he refused. So he had to go to prison about 3 or 4 times. Now I was a commercial traveler then, and I used to go and visit him at least once a month or every 3 weeks. And I found him lying in bed, unable to get up and things like that. He had just come out of prison. So then we decided that we needed to blow up his house, the house that had been allocated to him in Lodium.
But I was politically active in a non-racial youth organization called Modern Youth Society with my wife. In fact, I met her that way. I don't think I married her because of her politics. I married her because she was a sexy young woman and we fell in love. But having the politics meant I could speak freely about what I really felt about our country. You know, I wanted to be a civil engineer. I wanted to build for our people. And then I discovered I could build for whites. So first you change the government, first you change it, then you build for people. It took so long, I was too old to build for my people in that sense. But nevertheless, you understand what I'm saying. We worked together. She was politically active, so was I. When I joined Umkhonto we Sizwe, well, I didn't tell her because it would be dangerous for her and me if she were arrested and tortured and out it came. What she didn't know she couldn't talk about. But it did make a strain between us. I would need to go out and she'd say, "Where are you going?" And I'd say, "I just need to go out. You have to trust me." It's difficult in a young relationship, you know.
And so they introduced what is known as the General Laws Amendment Act, Criminal Laws Amendment Act, and they inserted the 90-day detention clause, under which, under the 90 Days Act, they could keep you in detention for 90 days at a time, for consecutive periods, if you don't cooperate. So in other words, 90 days, you haven't spoken, you didn't say anything, you didn't reveal any of your colleagues' names, etc. Next 90 days. At the end of that 90 days, you haven't done the next 90 days. So for as long as they needed to keep you there. And they kept some of the people there for 200-300 days, over a year, etc. The idea was to destroy them physically and mentally so that they could incriminate themselves.
You know, when Umkhonto was formed, in the Indian area where we lived, we had 4 separate units. Each unit of Umkhonto we Sizwe had 4 members. So there were 16 of us who were functioning in the Indian area. In 1963, 3 members from another group who had an informer with them, he had been working with the police and giving them information. This chap was a Malay bloke called Khamad Jardine. He told the 3 other members of his unit that they must go and blow up a railway signal box or something like that in Landagte. The 4 of them went there in his car and they parked the car in the street and he told them to keep watch. He told them where to stand and keep watch. He said, "I will go and set the dynamite alight." And he jumped across the fence to go to the railway lines where the signal box was. All of a sudden, what happened was that the place had been surrounded. He had informed the police. And the lights came on, bright spotlights. And these 3 chaps were on the outside. This chap Khamad had disappeared. One of them, Indras Naidu, was shot in the shoulder. Reggie Vandia was beaten up very badly and his arm was broken in 2 places. And the third person was beaten up so badly, his face was swollen and his eyes were blue and things like that. You could hardly recognize him. They were then taken from there, arrested and taken to a place called Marshall Square in Johannesburg City. That was a police station. That same night, they came to my house and they searched the house. They found nothing. They searched my van. They didn't find anything. And they arrested me and took me in. They also arrested a colleague who was also in controversies, a chap by the name of Isu Chiba. He was in charge of another group, another cell. So all in all, that night they arrested 5 of us.
Now I happened to be one of the first, together with a few other colleagues in South Africa, to be picked up under the 90-day detention. Because I was fully active in the movement, so they knew and they thought that I knew a lot of things. You understand? Because of I worked with people like, I was Walter Sisulu, Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo. I mean, all the giants. I was a young guy, all the giants of the movement. Yusuf Kachalia, Maulvi, Bernstein, whatever it was. You understand? And so they wanted to know.
And then there was a law which enabled the police to hold you for 90 days for interrogation. There was a license for torturing, because you could have no contact with family or lawyers or friends. They could do what they wanted, and they could make it another 90 days if they wanted. And so my comrade said, "Dennis, you better leave. You're so well known. You're known in Cape Town as Mr. Technico. The police will arrest you straight away." You needed microphones, Dennis did it. You needed a platform on the back of a truck for speakers, Dennis did it. You wanted to print pamphlets and posters, placard, and Dennis did it, you see. So you're going to get arrested straight away, better leave. But since you're in Mkhonto we Sizwe, your high command must give you permission to leave. We had that rule, the next higher level of your organization. So I went to Johannesburg, and there I was asked to stay and make the weapons for a major uprising against the apartheid government. And so I agreed to stay. 6 weeks later we were arrested. And when we were arrested, can I say, it was midwinter in Johannesburg, but it got 10 degrees colder straight away. It was we knew we were in danger. It was a difficult time to live through that first shock of being arrested. And then came the 90 days detention and the torture, and eventually being put on trial for our lives. And the security police had made it clear they were determined to have us sentenced to death.